The NFL season is officially 2 weeks away, which means we are in the heart of draft season. Here are my top 24 wide receivers for this season to help you dominate your upcoming drafts. What's going on, guys? Cody Onme's here. I am very excited to be bringing you guys my top 24 wide receivers for this season today. We're going to be breaking these guys down into tiers as well because I want to truly help you guys dominate your upcoming drafts. Let's get right into it with our first tier of wide receivers. Our tier one guys are Ja'Marr Chase, CeeDee Lamb, and Justin Jefferson. Guys, I'm going to start right at the top. Ja'Marr Chase, he's last year's Triple Crown winner. He had 127 receptions, 1,708 receiving yards, and 17 touchdowns. That was good for the wide receiver one overall finish. And guys, what I love about Chase is his situation does not change at all this year. His offense is still one of the most pass-heavy offenses in the league, obviously with Joe Burrow. But what's even crazier is that his defense might actually be worse this year. I can see this team being in a lot of shootouts, which means there's going to be a lot of touchdown opportunity and a lot of games where they're throwing the ball deep into the fourth quarter. I have no problem taking Ja'Marr Chase as my 101 if I have the number one overall pick in drafts, but I would be thrilled to get him anywhere inside the top 4 picks. My number 2 guy is CeeDee Lamb this year, guys. I really like CeeDee. I think that he had kind of a bad rap last year with Dak Prescott only playing 8 or 9 weeks. He has the ability to be the number one wide receiver. We've obviously seen that before, where he was the overall wide receiver one in 2023. Last year, he missed 2 games. He had 101 receptions, nearly 1,200 yards, and 6 touchdowns, and still finished as the wide receiver 8 overall. Just like Cincinnati, I don't really think that this Dallas defense is as good as it has been in years past, especially if they don't get a deal done with Micah Parsons. But again, another pass-heavy offense in Dallas where Dak Prescott consistently airs the ball out nearly 600 times per year. I really don't think that the addition of George Pickens is going to take anything away from CeeDee Lamb. I think both of them can be successful, and I have CeeDee Lamb as my number 2 wide receiver this season. Going into the number 3 guy, my last guy in tier 1 is Justin Jefferson. I don't think we need to sugarcoat it. Justin Jefferson is arguably the most complete wide receiver in football. Last year, he boasted a stat line of 103 catches, good for over 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns. That was good for the wide receiver 2 overall finish. He has proven to be quarterback proof over the course of his NFL career. Guys, when Justin Jefferson came into the league, he had Kirk Cousins at the helm for 3 straight years, and he finished as a top 6 wide receiver all 3 of those seasons, including being the wide receiver 1 overall in 2022. Last year, he had Sam Darnold as his quarterback all season and finished as the wide receiver 2 overall. And guys, just for giggles, for 4 games in 2023, he had Nick Mullins as his quarterback, and he averaged in that time period 22.1 points per game over the course of those 4 weeks. Guys, he's proven he can be quarterback proof. So I'm not worried about JJ McCarthy being in what will kind of be his rookie season. Kevin O'Connell has this offense cooking. Jefferson is working through a little bit of a hamstring injury right now. That gives me enough concern to put him at 3 just behind CeeDee, but I think he's back to practice at this point. He's going to be ramping up and expected to be fine heading into week 1. Again, not enough for me to take him completely out of my first tier, but just enough to bump him behind CeeDee Lamb. Those are my tier 1 guys heading into this year. These are the guys that I think have a legit chance, a very real chance of being the overall wide receiver 1. And again, it's not that I think any guys coming up on this list can't be the number 1 wide receiver, but these 3 are primed for it a little more than others. Jumping into my second tier, guys, we've got Nico Collins, Malik Neighbors, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brian Thomas Jr., and Drake London. Let's just roll right into Nico Collins, man. I really like Nico Collins. Last year, he only played 9 full games and still had 68 receptions, just over 1,000 yards, and 7 touchdowns. That was good for the wide receiver 23 finish overall, but he was also wide receiver 9 in points per game. Guys, Nico over the last 2 seasons has averaged 17.5 points per game. He's got excellent rapport with CJ Stroud. He's the clear top dog in this offense. And guys, they have between Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell 145 vacated targets. I really don't think that those targets are going to be split between the 2 rookies, Higgins and Noel. I do think Nico acquires some of these targets, and with the type of player he is, I think he has a real chance to finish as the overall wide receiver 1 if he can stay healthy. And I know that is a big if, considering he has missed 2 or more games in each NFL season he's been in. But guys, if he can put together a complete season, he is an excellent pick at his current ADP of wide receiver 7. My next guy in tier 2 is Malik Nabers. Guys, talk about bursting onto the scene as a rookie. Malik Nabers did just that with 109 catches, 1,200 yards, and 7 touchdowns last year. He also did that, guys, missing 2 games. He finished as the wide receiver 6, and he is one of the most talented young wide receivers in the league. He was able to perform as well as he did, despite the quarterback carousel that he faced with Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito, and Drew Lock. He has what I would call a slightly more stable QB room now with Russell Wilson, Jackson Dart, or even Jameis Winston, who we know can air the ball out. Guys, last year, this is an unbelievable stat to show how well Nabers is at getting open. He had 7 targets in week 1, and then after that, Nabers never had a game where he had less than 8 targets. He also had 10 games with 10 plus targets, totaling 170. Guys, this is a volume monster. He gets open a lot. He catches the ball a lot, and he is a really, really good buy in PPR leagues. My next guy in tier 2 is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown, guys, last year had 115 catches for nearly 1,300 yards and 12 touchdowns. Good for wide receiver 3 on the season. Man, you've heard me say it before, and I'll continue to say it every time. I want players on great offenses, and this is a great offense. This is an offense that will score a lot of points. Honestly, I would have Amon-Ra ranked even higher, but I do think that they could take a slight step backward this year, losing Ben Johnson and losing their center to retirement, Frank Ragnow. I do still think this is going to be one of the top offenses in the NFL. And I do know that they're run first. I get that. That's why I give him just a little bit of a bump down from what would be a top 5 wide receiver all the way down to wide receiver 6. Again, guys, it's not crazy. I think he's still going to make a huge impact this year. So that's why I'm going to put him at my wide receiver 6, just outside of my top 5. The next guy in my tier 2, is Brian Thomas Jr. Guys, Brian Thomas Jr., just like Malik Nabers, burst onto the scene as a rookie. 87 catches, almost 1,300 yards, and 10 touchdowns, which was good for wide receiver 4 on the year. Brian Thomas Jr., man, I really, really like watching this guy play. He has the tangibles to be a true all-around wide receiver. He is a solid route runner who gets open often. He's got excellent yards after the catch abilities. He can burn you deep with 4.33 speed, and he has a knack for finding the end zone. Guys, 12 touchdowns as a rookie, and in 2023, his senior year at LSU, he had 17 touchdowns while playing on the same team as Malik Nabers. I know that's hard to believe, but man, this guy has a really, really uncanny ability of finding the end zone. I have heard some people saying that they're concerned because he didn't have the success with Lawrence at the beginning of the year that he did with Mac Jones by the end of the year. Here's what I'll say to that, guys. During the first 8 weeks of the season, he did not play over 80% of snaps a single game. From week 9 on, he didn't play less than 80% of the snaps in a single game. So what I'm telling you is that narrative, I think, is silly. It's less about the Lawrence versus Mac Jones and more about BTJ taking the first half of the season to get acquainted with the NFL and with this Jaguars offense. And then he took off and soared in the second half of the season. The last guy on this tier for me in tier 2 is going to be Drake London. Drake London finally had that breakout season we have all been hoping for last year, putting up 100 catches for nearly 1,300 yards and 9 touchdowns. Man, he was averaging 13 targets per game in the 3 games that Penix started at the end of the year. I know that's a small sample size, but now he gets Penix for a full season, and Penix has proven that Drake London is his go-to guy. And guys, London, he's shown that he can do it all as well. He's got polished route running. He's great with contested catches, great with gaining yards after the catch. And I just think that there's a lot to like about London's upside. I think he's the clear number 2 in this offense behind Bijan. I do think Bijan Robinson is going to be the main focal point of this offense. But as far as in the passing game, Drake London is going to be their go-to guy. The Falcons have an amazing O-line, one of the best in the league. That's going to help their passing game as well. And honestly, guys, I'll just say that I would be confident drafting Drake London as my wide receiver 1 on my fantasy team. Those are my tier 2 guys. Let's roll right into tier number 3. Guys, I've got another 5 guys on this tier. A.J. Brown, Puka Nacua, Ladd McConkey, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and T. Higgins. Let's go right into A.J. Brown. Guys, last year, A.J. Brown, he struggled with an injury and toward the beginning of the season, missing 4 games, but he posted 67 catches, 1,079 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Guys, let's be real. He did this in a year where Saquon Barkley ran for 2,000 yards and Jalen Hurts threw for less than 3,000 yards. A.J. Brown has been Pro Football Focus's number 1 rated wide receiver over the last 2 to 3 years because he dominates all across the board, but especially in single coverage. Let me simplify that for you guys. A.J. Brown is unguardable. If that's the case, then why don't I rank him higher has been a question I have gotten. Well, I'll just say it. I think that there are obvious limitations to his ceiling playing in Philadelphia, where they are famously run first. Like I said earlier, I do think that Saquon will probably not run for 2,000 yards again. As you can see behind me, I would really enjoy that if he did, but I do think that they are going to have to air the ball out just a little bit more this year. And AJ has shown how efficient he can be, even in a passing offense that focuses on the run more. And wide receiver 22, he finished as year 22, fantasy season 22, he finished as the wide receiver 6 overall. And in 2023, he was the wide receiver 5 overall. Again, I can't imagine a scenario where Philly throws the ball any less than they did last year. Let's look for A.J. Brown to be back being a top 10 fantasy football wide receiver this year. My next guy in this tier is Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua last year, guys, had 79 catches for 990 yards, only 3 touchdowns, but he was wide receiver 3 in points per game. He only played 9 full games. Guys, Puka, I really like watching Puka Nacua play football. I think he fits in really well to the Sean McVay offense. He's got really good hands, solid route running. He does have a little bit of an injury history, though, going back to college, and he showed that a little bit last year. There are 2 main reasons for why I have him pushed down a little lower than his ADP of wide receiver 4. Number 1, Matthew Stafford is struggling with a back injury right now. I know he's trying to work through it, but at his age, that is something that can linger throughout the season, and that can be really, really tough. Guys, I think Stafford is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the NFC and crucial to the success of this Rams offense. So I'm going to push him down a little bit for that. And the second reason being Davante Adams. I do think Davante Adams will eat into some of Puka's production just enough to be frustrated if you draft him at wide receiver 4 overall. I'm going to pull him back to about wide receiver 10. If I can get him in that range, I really, really like it, but I'm just not willing to pay that top 5 price given the situation around him. My next guy in tier number 3 is Ladd McConkey. Guys, Ladd McConkey last year, another great rookie season, 82 receptions for 1,149 yards and 7 touchdowns. That was good for wide receiver 11 on the season. Guys, I have him ranked as wide receiver 11 again. And believe it or not, his ADP is wide receiver 11. So I don't think that's a coincidence. I just think it shows how consistent he will be for you in fantasy this year. The Chargers last year were one of the more run-heavy teams. I do think that that is going to be the case again, limiting his ceiling of maybe being a top 5 guy. But guys, Herbert is still one of the more talented. He is one of the best arm talents in the game, and he has a year of rapport with Vlad McConkey. Keenan Allen coming in, he might eat just a little bit of his every down production, but at his age, I still think that Vlad McConkey is going to be the clear number 1 for Justin Herbert in this offense. I look for him to have a big year too after a great rookie season. Guys, next guy in this tier is Jackson Smith-Njigba. JSN had a breakout season last year, posting 100 catches for just over 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns. That was good for wide receiver 9 on the year. JSN's breakout for him finally came and showed that he could be that possession wide receiver that we know he could be, the one that we saw in college where he was on the same team as Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave and led that team in receiving back at Ohio State. With DK Metcalf now gone, I don't think that the QB situation is necessarily better, but not worse. I think Geno and Darnold probably about match one another in production and how they're going to get the ball to JSN. So I still like him to be the clear number 1 wide receiver in this offense. He should get the volume to demonstrate that as well. I really don't see Cooper Kupp making too much of an impact. I think he's capable of a very high ceiling, especially being that his current ADP is wide receiver 14. I would draft him at that price with a lot of confidence. My last guy in tier 3 is T. Higgins. T. Higgins last year had 73 catches for just over 900 yards and 10 touchdowns. That was good for wide receiver 17 on the season while missing 5 games. But the crazy thing is, he was wide receiver 6 in points per game. We talked about it with Jamar Chase, and all of it is the same for Higgins. This passing offense is arguably the best in the NFL. If he's healthy for a full season, there is no reason to believe that he and Chase won't both finish as top 12 wide receivers. Guys, just 2 years ago, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith in a run-first offense in Philadelphia finished both as top 10 wide receivers. I think it's very possible for Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to both do that. Health has been a concern for T. Higgins. He's got 1 season under his belt in 5 NFL seasons where he has played the entire year, but he got his contract. He's tethered to Joe Burrow, and he's going to be facing the number 2 corner most of the time. He's got the talent to be a number 1 wide receiver on nearly any other team. He just happens to be behind a top 2 wide receiver in football. Guys, I like T. Higgins. I think that wide receiver 13 is probably the perfect range to get him in. I would draft him here and have no problem starting him every single week. Rolling right into tier 4, guys, I've got Mike Evans, Garrett Wilson, Courtland Sutton, Terry McLaurin, and Tyreek Hill. Guys, Mike Evans has been Mr. Consistency to start his NFL career. He has 11 straight seasons with over 1,000 yards receiving. That is unbelievable, and he's surely on his way to the Hall of Fame. He's also in the last 11 seasons, his first 11 seasons in the NFL, had 8 seasons where he was a top 15 fantasy football scorer. Last year, he had 74 catches, just over 1,000 yards, and 11 touchdowns. That was while missing 3 games, but being tied to Baker, who loves to air the ball out. With this Bucs offense, we just know that they're going to be throwing the ball quite a bit. They get into a lot of shootout, and guys, his situation just keeps getting better. Maybe not for the guys around him, but definitely for him. Chris Godwin is more than likely not going to be starting the year. Jalen McMillan is also now out, which leaves just rookie Emeka Egbuka to really compete with him for targets. I like Emeka Egbuka a lot, but the Bucs start this season playing Falcons, the Texans, the Eagles, the Seahawks, the Niners, and the Lions 6 out of their first 8 games. I think those are going to be close games where Baker really wants to rely on his tried and true weapon of Mike Evans. So expect another solid fantasy season from Mr. Consistency himself. The next guy on this tier for me is Garrett Wilson. Guys, Garrett Wilson is one of the more talented wide receivers in the NFL. I do think he has just been kind of cursed with poor quarterback play to start his season. But even last year, guys, 101 catches for 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns. Man, Garrett Wilson, he got paid this offseason as well. That shows that they really want to make sure he is a part of this offense going forward. If I was just ranking Garrett Wilson by himself as a wide receiver, I'd have him much higher. But obviously, there are concerns about how this offense will run with Justin Fields. He will have great games, and he'll definitely be the number one wide receiver in this offense. But I do think, given the offense, that his ceiling is just a little bit limited. My next guy here in tier 4 is Courtland Sutton. I think a lot of people are going to scratch their heads at this one, but after this, hopefully you are a believer like I am. Last year, Courtland Sutton had 81 catches for just under 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. That might not seem like much, guys, but from week 7 through 18 last year, Courtland Sutton was the wide receiver 7 in fantasy points per game. Once Nick's got his feet under him, he found his guy and he went to him often. He had 8 out of 10 games where he had 8+ targets during that span. And guys, if you go watch a highlight reel on YouTube of Courtland Sutton touchdowns, you're going to see a lot of catches that are very impressive. You're going to see him beating defenders one-on-one, and you're just going to see this guy make a lot of really, really good plays. Nothing changes much in his situation. I think he's still the number 1 wide receiver in this offense, and Sean Payton loves figuring out ways to consistently get the ball to his best players. My favorite part about Sutton, his ADP is currently wide receiver 23. I have and will continue to gladly take him at that discount. Guys, draft Courtland Sutton with a lot of confidence at that price tag. My next guy in this tier is Terry McLaurin. Man, this is a hard one for me, guys, because I think Terry is super talented, and he finally got the quarterback last year to really help him show his ceiling. But obviously, he has a contract dispute going on currently. Last season, 82 catches for just under 1,100 yards and 13 touchdowns. That was good for wide receiver 7 on the year. Guys, I do like Terry. I really hope that soon he gets the contract situation figured out. I think that if he does, he's probably going to move up my rankings, but I have to bake the risk into this just a little bit. At wide receiver 17, I still think you can get a top 10 guy for a discount. But guys, I'm just not sure what his contract situation is going to look like. We got to get him on the field. I like Terry McLaurin. We'll see what happens with him over the next few weeks. My last guy in this tier 4, is Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, guys, is last year he had 81 catches for 959 yards and 6 touchdowns. That was good for a very sneaky wide receiver 18 finish. He did play every game last year, guys, but he played hurt. We know that he had surgery on his wrist after the season to repair some damage that had been done. So guys, playing banged up, we definitely saw that he wasn't his true self after back-to-back seasons being the wide receiver 2 overall. But heading into this season, he does appear to be healthy. His situation really hasn't changed from those 2 years where he went back-to-back as the wide receiver 2. He's got the same coach, he's got the same quarterback, and he's got the same pieces around him. I do think this offense as a whole can bounce back. I like Devon Achane, and I think I like Tyreek Hill too, especially at his price tag. He's going anywhere from wide receiver 13 to 15 right now. And if he returns to 90% of what he was in 2022 and 2023, then I think that you're going to really appreciate having him at a wide receiver 13 price tag. Those are my tier 4 guys. Rolling right into tier 5 guys, my 5th and final tier. Here are my guys. I've got DK Metcalf, Tet McMillan, Calvin Ridley, Devontae Adams, Xavier Worthy, and Devontae Smith. Guys, DK Metcalf to me is one of the most underrated wide receivers, and I'll tell you why. Last season, he didn't have an amazing stat line on paper, 66 catches for just under 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. That was a wide receiver 32 overall finish. He did miss 2 games, but guys, let me tell you why I like DK Metcalf this year. After kind of a down year, he missed those games with injury, and once he had come back, the passing game had been going through Jackson Smith and Jigba, and it never stopped after that. He winds up in Pittsburgh getting paid big money. He has no real target competition. And guys, Aaron Rodgers has a history of hyper-targeting his top wide receiver. Over the course of the last several years, Rodgers constantly supports wide receivers that finish in the top 12 in fantasy. And last season, Rodgers supported not 1, but 2 top 12 wide receiver finishers in Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. If DK Metcalf stays healthy, I could see him getting a lot of volume. I could see him catching a lot of touchdowns, and I could see him very much outperforming his ADP of wide receiver 21. My next guy here is Tet McMillan, the only rookie I have in my rankings. Last year, guys, was a really big season for rookie wide receivers. There have been several sophomore wide receivers show up in these rankings already. But guys, Tet McMillan, no stats to talk about from last year in the NFL, but in his college season, he did have 84 catches for just over 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns. That earned him the number 8 overall pick to the Carolina Panthers. He looks to already have some rapport built with Bryce Young. I think this offense seems to be improving under Dave Canales' leadership, and I think Tet McMillan could see a huge volume season. I think he's clearly the most talented wide receiver in this offense, and I really like Tet McMillan to probably outperform his ADP. We'll see how he adjusts to the NFL. I've got him at wide receiver 20 now, but I could definitely see myself moving him up as we see him going throughout the start of the season. My next guy in this tier, Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley last year had 64 catches, just over 1,000 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Guys, we know that he was healthy all year. He just didn't have the best quarterback play. He had kind of a revolving door like Malik Neighbors did as well, mainly featuring Will Levis at the helm. I think he's going to have more consistency with Cam Ward this year, the Titans' number 1 overall pick, who's looked pretty good in the preseason. And he's shown over the course of training camp and the preseason that he really does want to target Calvin Ridley, his number 1 wide receiver. Sort of like DK Metcalf, I don't see a lot of target competition for Calvin Ridley this year. I think he looks like he has plenty left in the tank. I know he's over 30, but he did miss 2 full NFL seasons earlier in his career. He looks to be fresh. He looks to be moving really well, and he looks to have a great connection with Cam Ward. I think Calvin Ridley is going to be a really good buy for you at wide receiver 21 this season. Next, I've got Davante Adams. Man, Davante Adams, kind of like Mike Evans, has been one of those ageless wonders. Davante Adams had a top 12 wide receiver finish last season, and it was really fun to watch him be paired back up with Aaron Rodgers. Not really. I think that it made it really hard to watch. However, he did have a good season. I really like Davante Adams this year if Matthew Stafford is at the helm. Kind of the same concern I have with Puka. I just don't know what this offense is going to be like if Jimmy G is running everything. I do like Sean McVay, and I do think that these guys are going to have some really good fantasy weeks. But again, being the number 2 guy behind Puka already, kind of getting older as well. We'll see what happens. I do think that he has shown that he's aging really well. Also, he has been a top 15 wide receiver 8 out of the last 9 years. ADP of wide receiver 16 might be a little rich for me, but I do like Davante Adams to finish as the wide receiver 22 this season. Next, guys, I've got Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy last year kind of burst onto the scene in the last few weeks of the regular season and then in the playoffs. He finished the year with 59 catches for 638 yards and 6 touchdowns. That was good for wide receiver 34 on the season. He really shined in the Super Bowl against the Eagles' number 2 defense because they were winning by so much that they had to take out their starters. Sorry, I had to get that in there. Guys, Xavier Worthy, I think he has a lot going for him right now. He built a pretty good connection with Mahomes at the end of last season. And then other than that, his target competition, Rashee Rice, it's looking like is going to miss extended time, upwards of 6, 8 to 10 weeks. Travis Kelce is aging. I think that Xavier Worthy this year could easily turn into Patrick Mahomes' number 1 target. If that happens, he will definitely shoot up my rankings. For now, we don't have news on Rice yet. We're not sure what Kelce's going to look like this season, so I've got him tapered down just a little bit, but I do think Xavier Worthy could be primed for a big year if all the pieces fall in place. Last but not least, in my top 24, and the last guy in tier 5 for me is Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith last year had 68 catches, just over 800 yards, and 8 touchdowns. That was good for wide receiver 29, but he did miss 4 games due to injury. Guys, in points per game, Devontae Smith was wide receiver 18 last year. In fact, each of the last 3 seasons, he has finished as a top 18 wide receiver in points per game. I think he's as good of a route runner as anyone will see in the NFL right now. I don't think you're going to be happy with him as your number one wide receiver option, but I think you will be thrilled if you have him as your wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3. If you draft him in that spot, he is sure to win you weeks. He has weeks, guys, where he'll catch 8 passes for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. Those are huge to have if he's your number 2 or number 3 wide receiver on your team. I would be excited about getting Devonta Smith sort of in those middle rounds. We'll see where he kind of falls. I have him as my wide receiver 24, and I'm really excited about what he's capable of going into this season. One more time, guys, here are my tiers, top 5 tiers for the wide receivers for this fantasy football season. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, drop a comment, and let us know what you think. But hey, we are in the heart of draft season. I'm really, really excited to see where things shake out. I'm excited to get to the start of the NFL season, and I really want to look forward to hearing from you guys on how you're doing and dominating your drafts over the next couple weeks. Thanks for watching, guys. Feel free to tune in again next time.